I am a huge fan of the Resident Evil series and to this day an advocate of the classic games.
You okay?
Still in one piece.
You know, the ones with the fixed camera angles and the tank controls that everyone always makes fun of. The reason that this franchise has been with me my whole gaming life is ultimately down to the fact that it all started with one particular game, the Resident Evil 1 Remake, released in March 2002 for the Nintendo GameCube. Re-released so many times over the last 10 years that it should be as well known as Skyrim by now. Maybe I can do this joke in my Resident Evil 4 video again?
Crawl out of one hole and into another.
To this day, I think it's not only one of the best, but also one of the scariest installments in the franchise. I may have gotten to stumble upon this game a little too young, but you know how it is when your childhood friend's big brother already has all these cool adult games. Other kids were talking about Pokemon in the schoolyard. My friends and I were the weird ones talking about Resident Evil, Turok and GTA. Maybe we were just a bit precautious and had to work off our overflowing testosterone level in Soul Calibur 2.
This isn't over yet.
No, we didn't have to. We were just weirdos. But I wouldn't be making this video for you today if my enthusiasm for this franchise had ever left me. Not only have I delved deeper and deeper into it, from one installment to the next, I've also returned to these games so many times over the past 20 years that I think I will be able to look at them not only with nostalgic eyes, but also from an objective point of view. I experienced how they have aged, replayed and reclassified them over and over again. Now I would like to do this process again in its entirety, and will document it in the form of video essays in order to share it with you guys.
What is it?
Look out! It's a monster!
I would be honored if you would join me when I revisit
Resident Evil.
Alpha Team is flying around the forest zones situated in northwest Raccoon City, where we are searching for the helicopter of our compatriots, Bravo Team, who disappeared during the middle of their mission.
Have you found them yet?
No, not yet.
Bizarre murder cases have recently occurred in Raccoon City. There are outlandish reports of families being attacked by a group of about 10 people. Victims were apparently eaten. The Bravo Team was sent in to investigate, but we lost contact.
Look, Chris.
Bravo Team's helicopter was a derelict, save for the remaining body of Kevin. We continued our search for the other members, but it turned into a nightmare.
Hey, Brad. Where the hell's he going?
Chris's way. Head for that mansion. There are only 3 STARS members left now. Wesker, Jill, and myself. We don't know where Barry is. The intro cutscene is still iconic in my eyes. Yes, you can find the off-text and the casual one-liners cringy.
What is it?
Blood.
Now I have to correct myself. You have to find all the dialogue in this game cringy. But to survive this survival horror, well, you need a bit of lighthearted amusement from time to time.
What happened?
This whole place is a killing zone.
Whoever came up with these lines should get a Lifetime Achievement Award from Jeff Keighley himself.
A new level of cinematic immersion.
Cringy or not, there's a reason why this legendary quote from our very favorite Daddy
Barry.
is still a meme to this day.
That was a close one. A second late, you would have fit nicely into a sandwich.
Can something really be cringy when it has such a great cult status today? I mean, everyone thinks the merchant from RE4 is iconic, right?
Over here, stranger.
Okay, the original is cringy. Hopefully we can all agree on that. And who the heck made those bad costumes? That looks awful. For me personally, the most iconic voice line has to be...
Look what I've found.
What?
A can of fizz. It's sure to yellow and mellow those things.
What about you?
Oh, don't worry. I like the buddy system we have here.
The franchise is overflowing with silly but funny one-liners that make you cry with laughter. So I would be interested to know what your favorite quote is. Let me know in the comments down below. There's no denying that Capcom knew exactly what they were doing to scare you when the time is right. When you stumble upon your first undead, this rotting moron turns around and tries to eat you like a raw meatloaf. You will be screaming in panic, throwing the controller in the air while crying your cowardly little butts off to mommy. Because this game knows how to give you a heart attack at all times. But let me give you another example of how much fear the game can inflict on you with just a few zombies. After you further investigated the entrance hall and Daddy Barry has told you your life's destiny.
Here's a lockpick. It might be handy if you, the master of unlocking, take it with you.
You have to pass the infamous murder hall. Until today, I get a shiver down my spine when I even think about this corridor. Right at your feet lies an already seemingly undead corpse. And yes, believe me, in this game, the undead can even be more dead than just dead. If you know what I mean? You can already hear the moans and groans echoing through the corridor, but you can't see where the sounds are coming from. Your heart missed a beat, but you rush into the unfamiliar with your blood pressure already high. The hungry inhabitants of the mansion immediately turn around and stretch out their greedy rotting fingers towards you. You barely manage to dodge him with a 90-degree turn, but you don't know what's lurking around the next corner. You can already hear the quiet, muffled footsteps of the next zombie. You know you are almost within reach of it. The first time you see it is when its hands stick out from behind the wall and it's almost too late. With a step backwards, you let him reach into the open and wind your way around him more or less skillfully. If you are not brave enough to go through the survival horror yourself or want to refresh your memories of these old Resi classics, you can subscribe to my channel and hit the bell, because I will be revisiting all the games in the series over time. And you don't want to miss that, do you?
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
But let's keep going. Some may find this approach stupid, letting the player just walk straight into a trap just for a cheap jump scare. But in reality, it's much more than that.
Jill.
Barry, I didn't mean to get you that excited.
The excellent sound design, where you can hear every movement and grunt of the zombies, builds up an eerie tension even before you see the danger. When you come up against dogs, for example, you can recognize them by the high-pitched sound of their rapid footsteps and the clicking of their collars. When you hear this, you know you should get out of here quickly, even before you can see them. This is one of the many reasons why I like the camera angles of the classic Resi games so much. The level designers used the perspective and clever enemy placement to create a kind of horror that is no longer found in games today. The fear of knowing that something dangerous or horrible is waiting for you and you have to push yourself to face it, whatever it may be, is so much more intense than just having something jump out at you out of nowhere. Every step you take leads into the unknown, and you fear what might lie ahead of you. Or in the case of a zombie breathing down your neck, how close it is as you run away. On your way to the real armor key, you have to go through the murder hall again, and...
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god!
The dead undead is suddenly not so dead anymore. If you leave a killed enemy lying around for too long, it will resurrect after a while. This is such an enormous problem because it causes the undead to reach their next stage of evolution. They become a Crimson Head. And what's so bad about that? As a Crimson Head, the beasts become faster, more remorseless, and even deadlier than before. To prevent this, you only have two options. Either you can mercilessly blow the zombie's head off during their first or their second life, depending on how you calculate it, or you can dispose their corpses by burning them to the ground. The former is rarely possible, at least if you don't want to waste much of the rare shotgun ammunition. The latter you can't do with many, because there isn't enough fuel. Even when you have cleared a path of enemies completely, there's no guarantee you will be safe forever. Maybe one of those pesky dogs will come through the window when you are not expecting it at all. Man, dogs in Resident Evil. I hate those buggers. If they have enough room to move in circles around you, they can attack way too fast and bite into your arm until you become dog food. You have to force them into a narrow passage where you can fire a load of buckshot directly into their snout. You just want to take a comfortable walk through the East Wing, coming down a little bit after all the zombie stress, and suddenly... Oh my god, where did they come from? Even 4 at once? Are you kidding me? By the time you get back from your first big excursion outside the building, you won't be able to feel safe at all anymore, as these disgusting lizard creatures called hunters are now hanging around everywhere. Not only are they ultra fast, they also have a jump attack with which they can easily decapitate you, which logically means an instant death for you. Quite pleasant. Lying there all beheaded. No big deal. Nevertheless, all this means that you have to keep in mind in any given situation which of the Walking Dead you have already killed, and plan your route carefully, because a Crimson Head or Hunter you left behind could still be doing his mischief everywhere. The reason why it is so important to always know the safest way to your destination is the maze-like structure of this huge estate. You have to traverse many of these spooky rooms again and again, as you are sent from one end of the game world to the other, just like in a Metroidvania. But compared to the intergalactic adventures of Samus Aran, it's not new abilities or weapons that open up new paths for you here, but rather keys and other objects that are misappropriated as keys. For me, the great fun of this game comes from having to find out which corner of the building I haven't explored yet, which corridors lead where, or which puzzles there are still to solve. Each of the rooms is an exciting little adventure in itself. Most of them not only fulfill the purpose of giving you a task to complete, but they also have their own character and feel logically integrated into the game world. It's not unusual to find a canteen kitchen in the first basement of a manor house, where many people once lived.
Why?
You won't find it strange if you have to play the Moonlight Sonata on a grand piano in the bar. I get goosebumps every time I think of that moment. And by that logic, you won't find it hard to believe anymore that there's a secret laboratory underneath the mansion. At least if you know that this was once the home of Sir Spencer, the head of the Umbrella Corporation himself, a supposedly harmless pharmaceutical enterprise that was secretly researching highly lethal bioweapons.
Well, I guess we were right about this mansion being quite unnatural.
You have a way with understatements.
Anything could happen here. You might find a giant living plant hanging from the ceiling inside the next room. Luckily,
Mary Burton
was on hand to save me from this evil creature.
What the hell is this thing?
But where the heck did he get this flamethrower from? There's one room in particular that always stood out to me in terms of atmosphere. It is such a good example of how this game can work its magic on our minds. It's this underground connecting passageway between the residence and the aquarium. Not much happens here. You have to push a few crates into the water to get ahead, and that's it. But the feeling you will have during this brief moment of your stay is absolutely unique. This corridor is such a strong contrast to the rest of its surroundings. You've just been in the lounges of an old wooden building, and now you're standing in a damp concrete complex with water dripping down from the ceiling. Suddenly, this calming music starts. The reverb on the hubs lets you literally feel every single falling drop. This uncanny safety gives you back a piece of security in the midst of the merciless survival horror. The same goes for the safe rooms. Here you can rest your nerves, save your state, equip yourself with new ammunition at the item box, and after taking a deep drag of the screen stuff, everything will be just fine. The music here also gives you the right vibes to chill, a moment to breathe before the next dangerous encounter. The reason why this place can radiate so much atmosphere is, in my opinion, clearly due to the pre-rendered backgrounds. The art designers were able to be really creative with these. Of course, you could argue that this technique is a relic of its time and has rightly died out. The Resident Evil series itself had already switched completely to 3-dimensional levels with the release of Code Veronica on the Dreamcast and the PlayStation 2. But the amount of detail that is depicted in this way would simply not been possible with real-time rendering. And the game world lives from this, feels so rich in detail, precisely because all these little things are recognizable. This is what makes the Spencer Mansion so charismatic, iconic and memorable. And man, don't forget the doors. How many of those are there? Countless? I know it sounds a little ridiculous, but how creative do you need to be to come up with all of those? Not only are they all uniquely designed, but they also connect the rooms in a believable way, making the world feel so much more realistic as a result. But why did Capcom make the pre-rendered backgrounds a thing again when they already went 3D with Code Veronica? I think it was not only an artistic decision, but also a technical one, which in the end made the game look so much better on other ends as well. Fact of the matter is that when you only have to load a simple image into the background, there's a lot of processing power left over to do things that wouldn't otherwise be possible. Can you see here, in the scene in the gallery, how the light from the paintings tints Jill's character model in the same color? That, my dear friends, is global illumination. In a game from 2002, on the freaking GameCube. This is awesome. Of course I have no idea how they did it. I'm no expert just because I give myself a daily dose of Digital Foundry. Shoutouts to you guys.
Thanks.
But this? Yes, this looks damn good and makes the game age very well. The shadows are also top-notch. By the way, if you compare the GameCube version with the remaster, in terms of lights and shadows, you can see that the effects are there, but they don't stand out as much as in the OG version. You can see this well here on Chris's face. Everything looks a bit more subtle and less obtrusive. Some people might even like this more because it's a bit more realistic, but I think the game lacks a bit of stylistic expression this way. The OG version has a slightly warmer color palette overall, which is good for the light and shadow effects, and gives the many brown-toned backgrounds an even dirtier and nastier touch. But for now, no more nitpicking. As I said before, I love pre-rendered backgrounds for the artistic and atmospheric expression they achieve with their attention to detail. Load them in and then just add some invisible collision boxes and boom, magic. Assuming you can navigate around these boxes properly. Since this is sometimes a bit of a struggle, let's talk about the elephant in the room for a moment. Yes, I know, some of you couldn't wait to smack some arguments under the video why this is the main reason you hate this game so much.
Yeah, that's it, burn you,
I get it, guys. And that's what my comment section is for, to get rid of all your frustration. You're welcome. So, let's go. Tankcontrols. Here we go. Some people can play Mario 64 on a drum set. Many people can't play old school Resident Evil at all. I get it. I know they have their quirks, and even I have to get used to them every time I return to these classics.
Shit. It's broken.
But I don't do it for nostalgic reasons or because it would be fun to break my own fingers. No, to me it's worth investing half an hour in refreshing my muscle memory, knowing that the level design and combat were made for these controls. But since the remastered versions of RE1 and 0 also offer an alternative, I gave the modern controls a chance for the sake of research for this video, and they play acceptably, I think. The main differences between the tank and the alternative controls are that you always run, so you no longer have to constantly hold down the dedicated button. And you can do a turn in all 4 directions at any time, which makes the 180-degree turn that always slows you down a bit because you only can do it while standing virtually obsolete. This works very well for simply walking through tight corridors. Pushing cupboards and such like is even easier because you can align your character with the object that needs to be moved more quickly and precisely. However, every time the perspective changes, you have to rethink the directional input on your left stick to go straight down the corridor. So it can easily happen that your own character turns on its own axis and unintentionally runs back the hallway. This is particularly noticeable in small rooms that have a lot of camera angles, as these change every 2 steps you take. At some point, you will just be turning on the spot, not knowing where your chest and where your butt is. Zombies are often easier to dodge because the 90-degree turns make you whiz under the noses even faster, but baiting them with a slow step backwards is somehow more difficult on the digipad. After I did a whole playthrough as Chris, I didn't get the feeling that this is just a matter of practice. The alternative controls don't improve the feel of the game in any way, but they don't make it worse either. They have different strengths and weaknesses, so the Tankcontrols are therefore just as good. Or bad, depending on who you ask. That's why I would recommend anyone who hasn't played this classic yet and wants to do so now, to get acquainted with the original controls first, as they definitely correspond more to the original intended feel of the game. And I really hope that I have succeeded in motivating some of you to catch up on this classic. I explicitly want to say to those of you who may have only come into contact with the series by starting with RE4 or even Part 7, don't let anything negative you have heard about this game stop you from catching up with it. If it's on sale, you can try it out for yourself, investing just a handful of bucks. I had such a blast playing it again, and in the end I have to say, revisiting the Spencer Mansion in Resident Evil 1 was incredibly enjoyable. This game is right up there with Silent Hill 2 when it comes to the best horror games of that era. And that's why I already know, one day I will be revisiting it once again. Yours truly, Grumpy Snorley.